Can everyone hear me? Hello. I'm Michal. I'm your host tonight. Happy to be here. So, welcome to the second annual Stories in the Sukkah. Yeah, we had such a good time last year that we decided to do it again, and who better to honor than our own Julie Mock-Bienhauer. I have no idea where you are. There you are. Who has a fabulous haircut, incident. Okay, so the way tonight is going to work is I will I've now introduced the event. I'll tell a story, then I'm going to come up and introduce each storyteller. I am not going to give you my bio because that feels weird, but here I am. So we had another person scheduled who had to pull out, unfortunately. So I am going to tell the story of the first year that both my kids were there for a full session. See, Dalit's already laughing. It's a good one. Okay, so Anina, who is now 18, started going to Gilboa at around age 10. A couple of years later, Lula went and did her Nitzanim summer, which is where she went for 5 days. It was a great success. She somehow, despite her parentage, is a joiner and loves camp. I love being on the back end of camp. So the next year, she went for the full 2-week session, and Ron and I had a little dance party and then set off on the road. And our first stop was in Idlewild, and we had rented a cabin, which, as it turned out, was too rustic for us because we can do rustic, but not rustic. And we're sitting there in our rustic cabin before we found another less rustic cabin, and the phone rings, and it's Dalit, and she's like, "I don't want to worry you," which is a great way to start a conversation. Anina has strep, so she's like 12 or something, and we had to take her to the emergency room down in Big Bear, and they gave her amoxicillin. Anina is allergic to amoxicillin. Exactly. So as it turned out, don't trust the emergency room in Big Bear, California. It was written all over her charts, and the Roche that year took her down the mountain to the emergency room, and he was freaking out. He was like, "No, you can't give that to..." And then it was too late. So they brought her back up the mountain, and they put her in the MARP, which is the infirmary, and Dalit said, "Well, so what we're going to do is we're going to put a mattress right outside her room, and somebody's going to sleep on the mattress and check on her every hour." And I didn't know what those mattresses were like at the time, but I do now, so really that was quite a feat. And they did, and she broke out in a rash, but she was okay. And I felt like she was in good hands because they did what they could despite the obvious medical malpractice that had occurred. So we go on with our trip because we're great parents that way. And we're at the end of our 2-week trip, and where were we? I don't even remember. Oh, we were in Sequoia, which is so beautiful, and we had no reception. 0 reception. Like, our dog sitter got locked out of our house. We didn't know. And Dalit was calling me again, and we didn't know. So we get back out of Sequoia, and the phone rings, and it's Dalit, and she says, "I don't want to worry you, but we had to take Lula, our younger daughter, to the emergency room, and she broke her foot." And I was like, "What are you doing to my children?" But they brought her back up. She was in a cast, and they created what they called the Lula Mobile, which was a wheelbarrow, which they didn't clean. I found this out afterwards. And they had decorated it. It said Lula Mobile on it. It had all sorts of like pillows, which really don't use those pillows again. It had signs on it, and they wheeled her around the Big Bear campus, which, if you've ever been to the Big Bear campus, is no small feat. I mean, that is very hilly, it's uneven, and they did that. So she came home on crutches, in her tie-dye shirt, and we took her to our orthopedist, and her foot was not broken. So really, do not go to the emergency room in Big Bear, California. I find the second one even more egregious, despite the allergy to a medication, which could have been really, really bad, because that is a ski town. You would think they could, at the very least, get a broken bone right. But no. But here's the thing, my children were taken such great care of at Gilboa that summer and every summer. And despite the fact that in just 2 weeks, we got 2 phone calls about 2 children being broken, we kept sending them back because it was an amazing place that took care of them very, very well. So I want to say that this was before I joined the board, and it may have had something to do with why I wanted to join the board, if only to keep an eye on them. Our children are happy and safe and well cared for there, and very, very dirty. So I hope that tonight, in our many stories about Camp Mischief or just camp, you will see all the love and all the care that we have, both for Gilboa and from Gilboa.